Hopefully, hopefully everybody can hear. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so I mean, regarding RJ, and I guess the last question before I got cut off.
Mm.
Listen, he had a very good series against Cleveland after the first two games, and he had a very good series against Miami. But again, Game Six, he didn't show up. Admitted he had a terrible outing, which was very candid and very good of RJ
Yeah,
to take some of the blame. And he's so close, and you feel like he just needs more consistency. Does that mean at age 23 next season he's going to get that consistency? I don't know. Sometimes you're just a streaky player. Listen, Jamal Crawford was so streaky early in his career, but he became a sixth man of the year. He really became a more consistent player. And I'm just hoping that RJ will grow into his potential. Is he an all star? Probably not. But as long as he's a third option on a very good team, he's worth the third pick in the draft, especially after what is happening to the first two picks of that 2019 draft.
yeah, you said it. I think you sum up my thoughts in terms of he's very much worth that. The contract, he can. I always said it. He could easily outplay that contract. Given the fact that he's only 22 and he's had two chances now in the playoffs, and he's looked better the second time around. And you kind of have that confidence he'll be better the third time around because he works on things and he's strong mentally. Now we know the shortcomings of RJ's game. Um, what do you think is needed, Mark, to complement him and Brunson? Like what kind of pieces, what kind of areas would you like to see this Leon Rose address?
Well, they need that 3 point shooter, and Josh Hart is really not that player. If Cam Reddish had ever lived up to his potential, he was that player. So they got to go on the market. Like, listen, even the Miami Heat, they won the series, but Duncan Robinson is supposed to be that 3 point sniper to give a break to Butler and Bam, but he didn't shoot a good percentage, but they somehow willed their way to victory. Listen, the Heat are hardly perfect. The Knicks are not perfect, but they need more 3 point shooting, and they'll be on the market for it. Everyone is going to want Karl Anthony Towns, but I'm afraid that he's not a championship winning player. I was so disappointed in his
Yep,
elimination game uh, with Minnesota. He didn't seem like he even wanted the basketball, but he's still young too. Uh, but listen, there's a lot of stars that could be available. But is Levine? What are they going to give up? They'll have to give up Randle and a Quickley. Listen, they needed in the Miami series. They needed Emmanuel Quickley from the regular season.
no
If
doubt.
Emmanuel didn't hurt his ankle,
Yep,
and if Emmanuel was playing better and hit the 3 pointer and was a threat on his drive where he could hit a floater or a mid range, the Knicks probably could have won that series. The games were
exactly.
close, especially Game Six.
Yeah,
Jalen just needed a little more help, and quickly would have been that guy. And now he faces this contract extension situation where he didn't help himself with the postseason. Uh, so there's so many decisions though to make, including how much do you give Josh Hart? I mean, he's a good role player, but when push comes to shove, you know, you need a guy who play on the wing who's going to hit the 3 point shot, and Miami was daring him to shoot from three. So listen, it's
yeah,
going to be interesting also, and I noted it on Twitter for Knicks fans to watch this Boston Miami series, and it will be telling. If Miami beats Boston, you have to feel good about the Knicks, and well, maybe they're not that far away.
yeah. You hit on a lot of points. I don't think the Knicks are that far away, really. To take Miami six, you mentioned the point about IQ. Struggled in the playoffs, but hit a few shots late in game three. If he was able to go 4 or 5 or 6, we could have been looking at a different thing. But that just speaks to how valuable he is, Mark, to this team. We need shooting. and his defense is solid, and I'm banking on IQ to improve. So he's not a player I would like to give up on, but to get a big piece, you mentioned IQ. There's talks that he would love to be a starter in the league. Do you think he ultimately, tries to find an opportunity to start in this league, or do you think he's okay coming off backing up Brunson?
Well, I mean, he's not going to be a free agent now, so he has no choice, even if the Knicks don't
Yeah.
give him the big extension that he is seeking. But yeah, if the Knicks just don't want to pay him a terrific amount of money and he decides to become a restricted free agent, he very well might go to a place where he knows he's going to be a starter. He thinks he's a starter, and Brunson will be the starting point guard for the next several years. Barrett is probably going to be there for a while. Uh, yeah, so it's going to be very interesting. And Grimes is an up and coming star in Thibodeau's eyes as a two-way player. Maybe not an all-star, but a standout starter. So yeah, Quickley may decide if the Knicks don't give him a big extension to go to restricted free agency and see if he could find a starting role. But there is one other issue when you talked about what the Knicks need, and we could talk about it, but it is a different type of center.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. A stretch five, I think that's something
Exactly.
the Knicks could look at. There's a Brook Lopez, there's a KP, possibly. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think the Knicks just needed that little bit more offense. Let's keep it real. I think defensively we're a solid team.
Yeah, the center position. Talking to some people in the league, with the Knicks, they got three guys who essentially are the same player, uh, or they have the same weakness. They can't shoot even from mid range. From Jericho Sims, Hardenstein disappointed me. I thought he was more of a shooter when they signed him, and Mitchell is just regressing in every way. Although he did come up big from the free throw line when Miami put him on the line intentionally, but they need it's like going 4-on-5 offensively. Thibodeau has to also be more creative with Mitchell. He's got to get him rolling to the basket for some more alley oop type things and utilize his strengths. But right now, I've given up all hope that they're going to turn Mitchell into a mid-range shooter, let alone a three-point shooter. I think they got to work with Hardenstein in the offseason on his mid-range game. I think he doesn't even he wasn't looking at the basket either in the postseason. I was surprised. So the center position is they have three centers who kind of do a similar thing and are very good defensively, very, very good on the glass on both ends, but they need a little more offense, a little more shooting from the center position.
Yeah, and also a bit more of a paint presence offensively. Ability to play inside out. Mark, the what tipped Miami to win this series, I feel, is Bam and Jimmy. They make their other teammates better because they draw so much attention inside and out. And I think Bam Adebayo just had a fantastic last few games. His ability to play back to the basket, also facing the basket, spotting up. Um, just on Tom Thibodeau, how did you see? Did you think he coached a poor game six? A series? Do you feel like he got out coached?
He definitely got out coached, and Spoelstra is a terrific adjuster. When he sees something's not working, or he sees something is working for the Knicks, he does something about it. I feel Thibodeau is pretty stubborn, and he has a game plan and sticks to the game plan. And it wasn't game six, but maybe it was game four. To have Mitchell Robinson on the court in the fourth quarter when he was so ineffective, he said after the game, they were giving up all those rebounds, offensive rebounds to Miami. And, Thibs was asked, well, why'd you keep Mitchell on the floor? And he goes, oh, for rebounding. Well, he wasn't rebounding. And I know that the Knicks have a scrambling type of help defense, and a lot of guys weren't in great defensive rebounding position. But the problem with Mitchell, and maybe Julius was hinting at it about wanting it more, that maybe Miami wants it more. The problem with Mitchell is a lot of times he doesn't make that hustle play. He doesn't get that loose ball. He doesn't have great hands. Bam gets every loose ball. He gets every rebound, a tough rebound, easy rebound. He gets it. He's got great hands and strength, but Mitchell sometimes doesn't show that. He's a very flashy defender with his block shots, and and he'll come up with, rebounds, but not enough, and not enough hustle play, loose ball situations. So it was tough to keep him on the floor, in my opinion. He did
Yeah,
hit his free throws, thankfully, when the pressure was on, but going forward, Mitchell needs help, and if it's Hardenstein, that would be great. But I'd like Hardenstein to be able to shoot a 12-footer.
yeah, just one dimensional. That's I mean, you can be a lead on one side, but we just needed something on the other side. And I think that's what to win in the playoffs, and you need two-way players. I was impressed with Jalen Brunson, being gritty on defense despite being hampered. Also, he fought like hell in Game 6. Um, is he absolutely that building block now, Mark, where the Knicks need to find the right complementary pieces around Brunson? And did he even exceed your expectations?
Oh yes, he exceeded everyone's expectations. Game 6 was magical, and it's a shame that he has to again go out on the losing end and having to commit that last second turnover. But he was hitting shots like he was Kobe Bryant in that entire game, from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. Uh, a lot of people think, oh, he's a point guard. He should be getting people more involved. But
Mm,
he's a very smart player. If he thought someone else could, if he thought there were other options that were better than him taking a jumper or a drive, he would have dished the ball. But he was on a roll, and he was just fantastic. Uh, the Knicks have their point guard for the next few years. And we have never been able to say that before. And it's the most important position in the NBA, especially the new NBA. So that's why there is a confidence and an optimism that they every off season when I was on the beat, it was about what are they going to do at point guard? And now the Knicks don't have to worry about it. They just got to figure out, as you said, the right pieces around him. It could be Julius Randle. I feel if Julius didn't get that ankle sprain late in the season, he would have went into the playoffs on a roll. He would have
yeah,
had confidence. He would have been in great condition. So maybe you roll it back a little bit with Julius and Jalen and RJ and try to fill in a 3-point shooting role player and a center who can shoot. And maybe that's the tinkering that's done.
yep,
But I don't know. There are a lot of if Towns is out there, I know Leon Rose wants him, and I wrote it. It's funny to see these stories resurfacing because I googled my story from
yeah,
Christmas Day
yep,
2019 about Karl Anthony Towns and how much Leon Rose would love to add Karl Anthony Towns, and hoping that he will one day ask for a trade out of frigid Minnesota. Wrote that Christmas Day 2019, and now the buzz is back. But again, is Cat a championship player? I have a feeling when push comes to shove, he doesn't have that, you know, tiger mentality enough. So if you're
yep.
trading for him to be your number one, I think Knicks fans might be disappointed.
Yeah, I think you got to keep all options open. But the biggest factor would be, what would it take to give up? What would you need to give up to get a player like that? You mentioned Zach
Yeah,
Levine. He might be cheaper. Whatever the Knicks
yeah,
decide to do, it's got to be something that doesn't gut the team. Because you mentioned bringing Julius Randle back. I wouldn't be against that in terms of if he moves down the pecking order in the third option. And that continuity is the biggest thing, Mark. If the Knicks want to continue to be consistent, you can't keep overhauling the roster every year. There's something to be said for continuity, you know?
yeah. There is, but there is also something to be said about being stuck as a first or second round ball club when you're trying to break what is now going
Yep.
to be a 51-year championship drought. Uh, but getting back to what you have to give up, like if you bring in Karl Anthony Towns, you have to be trading Julius, whether in that deal or another deal, because I don't see Towns and Randle making a terrific tandem. Uh, especially defensively. Uh, Towns to me is more of a power forward. Uh, he never liked doing the Toppin Randall 4-5 small ball scenario. Naturally, Towns has a lot more height than Toppin, but uh, I feel if they get Towns, I think it's at the expense of Randall in some ways. Uh, but yeah, listen, everything
Yeah,
is on the table except Jalen Brunson. I mean, he's the untouchable, and then anything else that pops up, even in RJ Barrett, if if there's a way to make a an upgrade to the roster, RJ could be going also. But it's a very tough spot to be in because you're a good team, but if you run it back or you're just the same good team, that's going to lose in the second round or the first round. So it's great to be in this spot considering how terrible they were last
mm,
year. But 2 years ago, remember, they were the fourth seed with home court advantage in the first round. So that's
yeah,
my barometer on the progress. That they should be looking at 2 years ago. Well, this is where we were 2 years ago. Now we're one round into the second round, but we need to go further.
yeah. You make great points. You can't really sit on your hands at the same time, but there are pieces going to be available. I think it's going to be a big off season around the NBA. The Knicks have assets. Let's hope. Was it tomorrow night? The lottery. Can Dallas slip to 11? That would give Leon Rose a nice little nugget in any talks.
Totally,
Also,
it's a great point.
yeah,
It's more
yeah,
of another trade chip if they could get that 20% luck going. And, obviously there would be a lot of egg on Mark Cuban's face if he loses the pick after the tank job he did. But you're right. I don't know if they care about using, say, the 11th pick in the draft as much as they could add that to all their draft picks. And I think they were very conservative in the Donovan Mitchell situation. I think if there's something like a Levine, like a Towns, and they have to give up a lot of picks, I think they're finally going to pull the trigger on it. I mean, what are they waiting for? Jalen is not getting any younger. He's got a lot of mileage on him now. I mean, listen, he wasn't a one and done in Villanova. So, you know, he plays a very rugged physical game. So this is Brunson's prime, and you don't want to waste it.
yeah. You said it. Yeah, the topic of the show today is the future is now. We have that guy who we know is all NBA bona fide. Um, just with Tom Thibodeau, obviously you feel like he's going to stay, but is there any chance Tom Thibodeau could be more forced to hire an offensive assistant, a consultant?
Uh, yeah. Are you saying? Do you think they will have him do that?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, William Wesley would love to hire uh, multiple assistants to help Tom because I don't think William Wesley believes in Tom Thibodeau, even despite that fantastic regular season. Uh, he loves Johnny Bryant, obviously, uh, and I'm told that when Julius and Quickley and Barrett were singing Johnny Bryant's praises, I was told that William told them to talk up Johnny, not necessarily for the Knicks head coaching job, but just for Johnny in general. They're very good friends, and I think William would like to see Johnny get a head coaching job somewhere. Ironically, I haven't heard his name being mentioned uh, for other jobs. So, but in terms of hiring an offensive assistant, sure. William hired Woodson and Kenny Payne to help out Tom. So I wouldn't be surprised if William asked Tom if he could bolster the staff, or
yep,
not ask Tom, but suggest that maybe we hire someone uh, not in the Tom Thibodeau circle to help with the offense because there's a lack of creativity. And as great as Brunson is, and was in the game six. It's tough to win a game when only one guy is doing it, and you have to have a little more creativity to the offense.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that's music to my ears. Hopefully that ends up happening, and Tom is welcome to that, or the organization makes it happen. Um, just with Josh Hart, do you feel like there's a chance he tests the waters, or do you think it's a conclusion that he just entertains the Knicks and they get a deal done?
Yeah, I think he loves New York,
Mm.
and he loves Jalen, and he loves the attention. He loves the whole aura of the Garden of Knicks fans. I'd be shocked if they didn't re-sign him. I think they could even get a little discount. Listen, Josh was in the league for a few years, and no one, the casual basketball fan, probably was like, "Where is Josh Hart now?"
Yeah,
Well, he was in Portland, and no one really cared or knew about it because they were a losing team, and he was a role player. But he comes to the Garden as a role player and helps the Knicks win some games, and they're ready to, to build a statue in front of the Garden. And our favorite columnist was comparing him to Dave DeBusschere as the missing piece to a championship team. Well, that didn't happen. Uh, the Knicks did not get out of the second round, but Josh still hasn't had a training camp, and I think uh, a full season with Josh will be wonderful. He was a terrific addition. And listen, that night, that was a tough day for Josh. With his twins being born, he was ready to head back to New York, but the twins had already arrived and decided
exactly.
to play the game. Not every player would have decided to play that game. There were other players who would have went on that flight and been around the new twins and the wife. So
Yeah,
uh, you know, Josh did have a decent game, but again, in the big picture, he's not that 3 point sniper. He's a great all around player, tremendous pace setter, is great in the open floor, but they do need that 3 point marksman coming off the bench next season if they're going to get out of the second round.
yeah. Hopefully, Quentin Grimes continues to be that guy that develops and continues to own the two starting spot. Just a couple more, Mark. In terms of the Knicks' current assets, who would you rate as the highest asset at the moment? Randle, Quickley, Toppin, like in certain orders. And do you feel like Julius Randle is the number one asset outgoing to make an upgrade, or do you think it's more likely that they struggle to find a comparable deal and end up keeping Randall?
Yeah, well, I think that Randall has trade value now. He's not a max contract guy, and he just made third team All NBA, second All NBA selection in 3 seasons, and he's not at the max. So it's not a bad addition. And as you know, opposing coaches, he's number one. Well, Jalen will now supplant it, but for most of the season, Julius is the number one guy on the scouting chart, how to stop Julius. So coaches around the league know how tough he is and how you have to double team him. But in terms of trade value, I don't think anyone has great trade value. RJ signed his extension. It's not terrible, but again, you know, the inconsistency issues are there. Um, Josh Hart is a free agent, so you can't really trade him unless it's a sign and trade. But I don't think Thibodeau will have that happen. Uh, Quickly is an expiring contract. I mean, he could have some value if the Knicks decide no, we don't want to invest a tremendous amount of money in this extension right now. We want to see another season.
Yeah.
So Obi, I think Obi has some trade value, and I
Yep.
think he's expendable. With Jericho Sims as a big man and Obi still inconsistent from the 3 point line. He shows flashes of brilliance, but just not enough. And I think Obi is stuck as a backup, and I think I mean, he's a CAA guy, so if Obi tells CAA, move me, I want to be a starting player somewhere, Leon is going to try to accommodate him.
Yeah, I think the number one reason Knicks fans should be optimistic heading in is because I feel like we made the Final Four of the East, and I think even if we brought back the same roster with no changes, I think the New York Knicks are still in the Final Four of the East. I think they're better than Cleveland. They're not in a position to make huge moves and upgrade. Um, I don't. Do you see any other team that finished below the Knicks that can get above the Knicks, even if the Knicks didn't make any major moves?
Well, I mean, the Knicks were better than Cleveland in that series.
Mm,
Evan Mobley is a very young player, and he did not have a good series, and it was his real first taste of the playoffs. He had a play-in game last year, but Garland is only going to get better. Mitchell was his first year on the squad. I mean, I think the Cavaliers are dangerous and will continue to be dangerous. Uh,
yeah,
but again, we've talked about this. The Knicks are a great regular season team because of their head coach, who treats the regular season like it's the playoffs, and then come playoff time, uh, there's not, as you probably have alluded to, there's not a higher gear to go to. They're the same team from the regular season. While
exactly.
Miami,
Yep.
and I'm down here in South Florida and experienced their regular season, they couldn't care less about their regular season. They rested Butler a lot. They wouldn't play Lowry major minutes because they were managing his time to make sure he was ready for the postseason, and he's been spectacular off the bench.
Yep. We may have just lost Mark there for a minute. But ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate everyone rocking out, talking Knicks off season. The future is right now. No matter how you want to build this thing, be optimistic because the New York Knicks are in a situation they've not been in 2 decades right now. All NBA players now, all stars. Um, guys that people around the league are going to be looking at, specifically Jalen Brunson. Like, I can play with him. He's built for this. He's tough. He shows up in the playoffs. Um, he can carry a team. He can put a team on his back. I think we just fell short with shooting and versatility. I'm looking at guys that are wings. Kyle Kuzma, guys that can shoot. Pascal Siakam, two-way players. Me personally, how I feel like you can win in the playoffs and in the NBA. Right? The Knicks have had enough players that play one side of the ball. You know, we need multi-versatile, multi-dimensional players, and I think that's why the Heat ended up winning. You know, Kyle Lowry could give them a bit of offense, a bit of defense. Um, Max Strauss gave them offense and defense. Gabe Vincent gave them a bit of offense and defense also. And then you add in Bam, you sprinkle in Jimmy, offense and defense all day. Now the New York Knicks struggled with with both sides of the ball at different times. Mitchell Robinson's a beast on the glass defensively, offensively we couldn't get much. Spacing's not great, all of those things. So whoever you bring in, they've got to be able to shoot. They've got to be able to score and defend. Whether it's at the 5 spot or whether it's at the small forward spot, the 2 guard spot. We'll continue to talk about it all off season. But tomorrow night, the NBA draft lottery is here. A 20% chance the New York Knicks get that pick and slip to the 11th slot and get that pick, which will be a great asset for us to talk about. And I feel like no doubt Leon Rose would move that pick in a deal. I don't think the Knicks would be, given what we just witnessed, you know, being within games 6 and 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think he would entertain drafting a player at 11 unless we were, able to pull off a move somewhere else. But yeah, I think we're going to probably be looking at trading picks, maybe another young player, a role player, to bring in some help all day, every day. We need shooters. There's guys like Kispert out there. Brook Lopez can stretch it. KP, Carl Anthony Towns with some concerns, over the salary, the defense, the motor. Um, but yeah, man, Jalen Brunson, what can you say? Like, he's a player I've rarely seen as a New York Knick in my time, going back since the late '90s. In terms of just so reliable, so dependable. Can hit the deep 3 ball, the step back, can get to the paint, has post moves, all of those things, right? and he makes his teammates better, he'll learn from the mistakes in Game 6. But when you look at it, like Mark said, and what Knicks Nation have been saying, you could count how many things went against the Knicks, from Julius Randle having the injury coming into the playoffs, not able to find his rhythm. We had Emmanuel Quickley miss the last 3 games. Quentin Grimes had a slow start due to the injuries. Um, what else happened? Injuries during the season. Jalen Brunson's ankle. All of those things were a huge factor, right? And we might end up just ruining a great missed opportunity, to get to the NBA Finals. But realistically, it was a year sooner than what most people had expected, and that is good signs because that means Jalen Brunson was that good. He was that good. He was that guy, and to get us as far as we did, 47 wins, we really could have ended up with 49 wins. Like I said, without the injuries late, the interruptions throughout the season. Um, but we approach this off season differently. We can be a little bit more patient. No, now I want this team upgraded like everyone else, but now's not the time to really get too impatient either, and then ruin everything by giving away all the pieces. The reason the Knicks won 47 games was because we had a lot of depth. We had depth in the regular season. Um, we had guys that could produce and step up when needed. So that's going to be something we're going to need. We're going to rely upon that. Um, we do have some pieces like Deuce McBride, some player options that we're going to pick up. Deuce McBride and Jericho Sims for like $1 million. I expect those to get picked up ASAP because they're players that can help you in the regular season and they're still growing. We have a dude overseas, Rocas, who this could be the year they look into bringing Rocas over. I'm not sure of his contract situation in Europe. I will look that up for the next show. But we have some pieces, some younger guys that can step in and also supplement the roster. But yeah, we need some shooting and we need some wing help, athleticism. Um, Now I'm banking on internal improvement from RJ Barrett, Quentin Grimes, and Emmanuel Quickley, and Obi Toppin, if they're here. So they're the four, and Mitchell Robinson. I still feel can improve, but offensively he's limited. But specifically RJ, Quickley, Grimes, and Toppin, if those four players all come back better players, then that's big. That is huge for this team and organization because they've had a dose of the playoffs twice now. Grimes once, but Quickley, Toppin, and Barrett twice. And there's no greater learning lesson than actually going through the lumps. You can't cheat steps. You got to be handed the business in the playoffs to then go back in the off season and then say, hey, I got to work on this, man. Like little things like RJ Barrett getting stripped towards the end. I had a chance to watch Game 6 again. There was a point where RJ Barrett's, ability to not use his right hand to lay the ball up was an issue. Also, he had a clear open layup on the right side of the cup, and what did he do? He decided to go under the rim to use his left hand, and that gave the defender enough time to block the shot, or he missed the shot, one or the other. But yeah, things like that. RJ Barrett's just got to be better than that. He had a wide open layup on the right side, but decided to use his left hand. So yeah, limitations like that. 4th year in the league, he's got to. There are things that he can improve upon. We don't need to trade to improve on things like that. Um, Now, one of the most disappointing things in the playoffs for me was the Emmanuel Quickley situation. I picked Emmanuel Quickley to be one of the players to give us an edge in the playoffs. Unfortunately, slow start, injuries cost Emmanuel Quickley and cost us. But I know he's going to come back a better player, even if we don't reach an extension. I think Emmanuel Quickley will come back a better player, and he'll play out at least the last year of that contract. So I'm looking for a big off season from IQ. He's improved every year he's come into the league. RJ Barrett will come back an improved player also, and there's so much to be happy about with Quentin Grimes' play in his 2nd year. Um, Became a starter in this league. Finished playing in the playoffs in big moments. that third year elite, we can expect to see, I think, from Quentin Grimes, the ability to, play hurt defensively, get that big steal on Jimmy Butler in Game 5 is a moment a lot of young Knicks fans and all Knicks fans alike will savor, in terms of a special, playoff moment for Quentin Grimes, getting hit on that illegal screen and then still able to D up and get that big steal on Jimmy. So, Quentin Grimes is a huge part of this thing. I think the moment was just a little bit too big towards the end. Obviously, the turnovers hurt the Knicks, 12 turnovers to 7. And if you want to win playoff games on the road, you can't turn the ball over. That's as simple as that. Stupid turnovers like the one Julius Randle threw the ball into Jalen Brunson's chest when he was 1 meter apart, like 3 feet apart, and he threw the ball at Jalen Brunson. Things like that. The Knicks needed to clean up to win Game 6. Little things like that I look at on the rewatch. Not just the missed shots or the fouls, the missed foul calls from the officials. It's little things like that, turning the ball over, and things that got to be cleaned up by the Knicks. Also, Tom Thibodeau had his worst coaching performance in Game 6. For me, it was the ability to, not understand the situation with the lineups. Closing it out in the second quarter, running that unit out with no floor spacing, no ball handling duties, things like that. That cost the Knicks the lead, and ultimately the end, deciding to trap and double blitz Jimmy Butler was a weird one for me. It's something we don't see throughout the regular season. And I asked Coach Nick B-Ball Breakdown. He says it could have been a little bit of panic also. So we got to learn from that, keep our cool. 1 minute to go. We didn't need to blitz and trap Jimmy also. But all in all, it was a special season, to come within, 2 points of tying it up with 30 seconds remaining to go to a Game 7 of the of the second round and make the Eastern Conference Finals was something I didn't expect, and even as an optimistic guy also. So I asked the question to Mark Berman, see if Mark can jump back in, but if not, we might wrap up shortly. But if the Knicks didn't make any changes and came into next season as currently constructed, we are still in the top 4 teams in the East. No doubt about it. We're better than Cleveland. We're better than Brooklyn now, that have gotten a little weaker. We're better than Atlanta, and we're better than Washington. And we're better than Toronto also. So that's the big thing, right? No need to panic yet, because if you do, then you might end up making some errors. Yeah, I think it's a situation where, we address what we need, which is shooting, and see what happens, right? Allow these players to improve in the off season and get better, because there's no greater learning lesson than losing. I think it's a situation where the Knicks will be excellent coming in. The only thing is there's going to be big expectations. I think there's going to be expectations, and I think the New York Knicks with Jalen Brunson now and his ability to go to that next level, I think he still has another gear. I really do think he has that next gear to go to. But yeah, man, appreciate everyone rocking out with us despite the tech difficulties. It was great to have Mark on, and we'll talk to him throughout the off season as we continue this conversation. Now, the future is now for the New York Knicks organization. We know what we have in Jalen Brunson, right? A number 1 option, and a guy who can even get better and move to a number 2 or a co-star. Whoever we look to get in, we'll be on live tomorrow night after the draft lottery. Chop this thing up again, and I appreciate everyone rocking out again. Keep that like button buzzing, and we keep bringing the content. Salute to all Knicks Nation for what a season it was. Everyone's support, hype, fandom, all of those things help make this year a special year. and the offseason is going to be big, and next year is going to be even bigger as well. So with that said, CT's out, and I will catch you on the next one, everyone. Peace.